Emma's face at the end of this latest episode of The Promised Neverland can be summarized with this. She is basically like a beast that has been pushed into a corner and is about to lash out with all her fury, because she has lost something very dear to her. And I think after a month of just without Norman, realizing he is gone has allowed her to really realize how much she cared for him. I mean, she knew she cared for Norman. She was aware of this. But when she finally lost him and he was gone, I think she came to the realization of just how painful it was to actually lose someone, especially when you know that they're going to die. And I think this has amplified Emma's determination to be able to escape from the farm, because we know she's always wanted to escape. She doesn't want to see anyone die. But the very person that died now was someone extremely close to her. She doesn't want to have that same feeling ever again. So that facial reaction she had at the end of this episode says it all. Now, I want to talk about Norman for a second. Since technically you could say he is dead, it's a sad episode because he was a boy that honestly had a short life and he accepted death. He walked into death's door and didn't turn back. That's what happened to him. It's a very sad episode, and the emotions I had while watching this episode was pretty freaking high. Especially for someone that has read the manga and knows what's going to happen and everything, I'm still impressed by the level of quality that this episode gave me while watching the entire Norman scene throughout like the first 60% of this episode. So, Norman, I really like the emphasis on his briefcase and just how it was done in the anime, of how his briefcase was empty. And you have it where Isabella, she's like, your briefcase is empty. And he's like, well, it pretty much is. I just have something very light. And what he had inside of the briefcase is very significant. It's very important in terms of the message behind it, and also kind of what happens when these kids leave. As we know, when you leave the farm, you're not going to need anything. You're not going to need clothing. You're not going to need any stuffed animals, nothing, because it's over. GG. You wrap it up. You're dead. And Norman is very aware of this. So obviously packing would be a waste of energy. And basically he was just like, there's just no point. But on top of that as well, what he did put in to the briefcase, the meaning behind it was that Emma was with him. No matter what, no matter where he went, he would hear Emma's voice. That's basically what that meant when he put that inside of his briefcase. He's like, even though Emma isn't right beside me, in heart and spirit, she's right next to me, cheering me on until I finally have lights out. And that was the message there. It was a very emotional scene, and especially when you saw what Norman said, when he's like, Mama, are you happy? And her just look of shock. It was definitely telling about something, which I'll get into later on in this video. But Norman, he accepted death. It was obvious that he didn't want to die, okay? Just to clarify, Norman did not want to die. But he realized that his love for Emma was so vast that he was willing to throw his life to the side, get rid of survival instinct, just to be able to save everyone else. That was what happened since the very beginning. Remember what Emma did to Norman, or what she asked of Norman. She's like, I want to save everyone. And remember, Ray had a conversation with Norman's like, it's illogical. Why would you try to save everyone when it just doesn't make sense? It's going to be too hard. It'd be better if we just, run away. Maybe only with Dawn and Gilda as well, so just 5 people. But trying to get all the kids out at once, it just seems not logical at all. And Norman, even though he knew this because of Emma, he was willing to go that far. And he decided to stick to his guns, his plan of wanting to save everyone. So he knew if he was to run away, it would be possible probably for Ray, Emma, Dawn, and Gilda to get out, but it would definitely be impossible for any of the children to get out alongside of them. So, because of Norman respecting Emma and not wanting anyone else to die, he was willing to lay down his life because of his dear love, his love for Emma, how much he cared for her. That's why he was willing to do it. It was just a An emotional moment because no kid his age should have to do that. No kid should have to walk in to death's door and have to willingly lay down their life because of everyone else. I mean, it's noble, but at the same time, it's messed up that he had to do that at such an age. I mean, nobody really should be in that position, but even then, though, just of all things, a kid his age should never have had to make a choice like that. Now, let's get into the final moments. When Norman walked beyond the gate, and Isabella's like, wait here, in this room, and she opens up the door, there's a lot of questions that many can get from that scene, and basically, when you look at that scene, it's obvious that Norman was absolutely shocked, and there's a couple of reasons for this, why you would think you could be shocked. Number one, he's shocked because, he knew he was about to die, and it was just something that was probably going to be very painful or whatever, and he was just shocked. Number two, it probably was something that he never expected, which blew his mind. He's like, what's going on here? Or number three, he was just, waiting to see what was actually beyond the door, and it wasn't like he expected to be as brutal. Maybe he might be getting like put to, sleep in a way. Like, for instance, how some animals or creatures, they are kind of eased off to where they're given medication or whatever to kind of be at peace, not feel any pain. Maybe that's what's happening to Norman as well. Maybe before they actually finally do lights out for him, they're putting him at peace, making it to where he doesn't have any pain, and then they do it. Who really knows? But that's the big point there, is that Norman did have a face of shock, which makes you wonder, for a man to be willing to walk into the door of death, why would he be that scared or shocked in that moment? It raises questions. Isabella was a very important character. Like, her character was very vital to this episode for a lot of reasons. Because she is now controlling the children by force. What she did to Emma, it's like, if you try to interrupt again or do anything, I will kill you. That was a very scary moment. Because Isabella knows that Emma can be controlled in that way, the way she reacted. And Emma was scared because she doesn't want anyone else to die. I mean, she, in that moment, had to weigh her options. Does she let Norman die, or does she let everyone die just for the sake of Norman? And she realized her fault in that moment, so Isabella perfectly trapped her. Ray, as an individual, he's been stated to be someone that quickly gives up. This was stated around the first, second, and third episode of, The Promised Neverland, to where he gives up quite quickly. When things go, amiss, problems happen, he gives up. So it fits in line with his character, and he's like, I'm done. I give up. Let's just die. That's basically what he said. And in that moment, you're like, holy crap, Ray really has given up. It goes along with his personality. But then the final segment happens, and you're scratching your head like, okay, what's going on here? Did Ray really give up? Did Emma give up? It's obvious that Emma didn't give up, but did Ray really give up? That is the question. And if I had to assume anything, or many could assume just from what has been pieced together, he most likely didn't give up, because if he really did, he wouldn't have talked to Emma like that. It's like, Emma, you really haven't given up, have you? He wouldn't have said that. There's just no way he would have went out of his way and said that if he really did give up. He would have just kept going until he died on his birthday. So he does have some form of will to survive inside of his body. But getting back onto Isabella, though. Isabella, she had a little bit of her personality expanded upon. Like, for instance, when Norman asked a question, are you happy? And then she's like, yes, I'm happy. She had a shocked face, but then she's like, I'm happy. It was like a face that showed that she was not expecting a question like that. Because in those final moments, obviously, Isabella was realizing that of all kids, anyone in that moment would think of their death. Like, they're going to their death. But instead of worrying about himself, worrying about his own survival, he was actually thinking of Isabella and if she truly is happy with what she is doing. For instance, you gotta imagine it from Isabella's perspective, okay? Even though she is a monster and she's a really good antagonist for this story, she most likely didn't start off like this. It's very clear, because we gotta look at the conversation with Emma and Isabella. Isabella offered Emma a position as mama. Like, hey, you can be mama. I can, give her a letter of recommendation. You can go for the training to be like me and eventually run this farm. That is a great honor, honestly. And when you think about that entire segment, you can kind of view it as Isabella really felt bad for Emma and actually wanted to help her out. It's clear from the conversation, because it was like Isabella was projecting herself onto Emma, like her experiences, what she went through onto Emma to try to ease Emma's pain. That's pretty much what she was doing. It wasn't anything that was trying to get into Emma's head and really just mess her up. She legitimately was probably trying to help out Emma and give her some form of option out to where she wouldn't be suffering for the rest of her life, or until she finally dies in, less than a month or two. So that's the point there, is that Isabella in some cases did show some compassion, some humanity with Emma in that single moment. And when you see how, like I said, Norman asked, like, are you happy? It's clear that she's lying. When she said she was happy, she's actually lying. Because we gotta remember a couple episodes back, 2 or 3 episodes ago, we saw a girl on top of the wall. It's very obvious from that scene in the segment that the girl on the wall was Isabella, and Granny was the one, before she became Granny, she was the mama of that, plantation. She was stopping Isabella from escaping. But Isabella obviously gave up, which goes along with the conversation that Emma and Isabella had in this episode, to where, Isabella's like, just give up. Just give up. Faster you give up, the easier it is. You'll be able to move on and be able to get things done. And so, Isabella comes from experience of the same exact emotions that Emma is currently feeling, which makes sense why Isabella would confront Emma and try to help her out in her own way, because she sees herself in Emma, and that's why she offered that way out. And so the entire situation, this would be like, one day Isabella would become grandma, and Emma would become Isabella's position, mama, and that would be their dynamic. So it's kind of like a cycle, constantly repeating, and that's just what was being set up in that moment. But, another good thing about this, too, or a little bit more detail of Isabella, is that she was also someone that showed that she hated doing what she was doing to these kids. Like, you could see that she, at first time when she started this, she probably didn't want to do it. But she went against, her will of, wanting to be nice or whatever, because she thought of her own survival. And it's very similar to what happened with Sister Crone. Remember what happened a few episodes back, when we saw this innocent girl, Sister Crone, that seemed really kind, like she wouldn't hurt a fly. She was just an innocent girl. But then after, like, her training, she became very hardened. She became a veteran to where she would be willing to throw anyone away just to be able to survive. And that's kind of what has happened to these adults. They have slowly been changed and messed up and warped just to be able to fit this farm and constantly pump out more products. Sad. It's pretty freaking sad to think about. But okay, anything else really to talk about? I think not, honestly. I think I might have covered everything that needs to actually be covered. I mean, Emma gave up, but we found out she didn't. We found out about Ray, Norman's death. I mean, I think I pretty much covered everything. If I have missed anything, let me know in the comments below. I am very sorry if I do. But I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And with that, Chibi out.